we have heard consistently throughout this cycle that next to the economy, immigration is the #1 issue for Latino voters especially. How have the candidates' cases being made on this issue resonated with them?
You know, it's really interesting. We were seeing some neck to neck between Trump and Kamala Harris prior to the comedian saying those disgraceful comments at Madison Square Garden. Once that happened, what we've seen is just a ricochet in the Latino community coming together and feeling almost a reminder of what it was under Donald Trump. And I will share with you, I was in Pennsylvania this past weekend door knocking, and people were saying that they weren't sure if they were going to vote. They were on the fence. But after the Madison Square Garden comments, they were all of a sudden not only energized, but they were coming out in full force. I do think, though, that if Kamala Harris is the person that is elected to be president, she is going to have to figure out how to navigate the undocumented community that's been here for 10, 20, 30 years, who are looking for some sort of relief to come out of the shadows. And that is where the majority of Americans are also aligned with. And she will have to have a separate conversation of what's happening at the border and the south of our border. I do think that it is time for us to have an honest conversation with fellow Americans and recognizing that we have not had a Latin American policy for the last 45 years. And as a result, we have left it vulnerable to foreign interference by massive investments by both China and Russia, and increasingly destabilized governments that were once solidly democratic are increasingly vulnerable to other policies, as we're seeing in Venezuela, and we're also seeing in Ecuador and Peru.
Maria Teresa, you mentioned Madison Square Garden. I want to get to the bottom of this with you a little bit, because that was a remarkable news cycle over the course of that week, starting with the original offending joke. Then what Joe Biden said, using the word garbage, seemed to turn this around. By the end of the week, Donald Trump's driving around in a dump truck, and the word garbage has taken on new meaning somehow in this campaign. It is not lost on us that Kamala Harris was in 2 majority Latino cities in Pennsylvania in her closing day, Allentown and Reading. What is the impact, if any, of this whole saga?
Well, I will share with you, it was an unfortunate conversation that the President Biden had. He actually had it on a Voto Latino Zoom call where we were trying to get people excited and geared up. And so it was an unforced error. But I also think the fact that Kamala Harris has been spending time in Reading and Lehigh and Allentown is testament that she recognizes the Latino vote is critical for her in Pennsylvania. It's also critical for her in Nevada and Georgia and North Carolina. And she made it very clear that what the president said was his comments, not hers. And what she's been able to do is distinguish herself from his, from the president. I do think, though, that what we saw with the Madison Square Garden comments was that it did unify the Latino community. I will share with you, Voto Latino, we work with artists all the time. We have been trying to engage Bad Bunny for a very long time. And he was always very clear with us, saying this is politics in the 48 states. It's not of my concern. I'm very interested in Puerto Rico. The moment that those comments landed with Bad Bunny, it changed the equation. Not so much because it was Bad Bunny, but because Bad Bunny has an audience that are low information, low propensity voters, people that were tuned out to the election, all of a sudden tuned in. And he gave them a very clear indicator that there is someone on the ballot that was not respecting them. And there was another person on the ballot that perhaps, if elected, she could work with them.